In 2017, Linda Darling-Hammond, in collaboration with the Learning Policy Institute, reviewed a series of methodologically rigorous studies that showed a link between professional development, educator practice, and student outcomes in order to identify common elements. They identified 7 elements of effective professional development, articulating that such professional development is content-focused, incorporates active learning, supports collaboration, uses models of effective practice, provides coaching and expert support, offers feedback and reflection, and is of sustained duration. This list provides a structure for those designing professional development to incorporate best practices in the design of professional learning with their knowledge of proactive, flexible instructional supports. Darling-Hammond and colleagues determined that the model that's most successful in incorporating all of these elements is a professional learning community. In one analysis of 1,500 restructuring schools, the research team linked successful professional learning communities to reduce dropout rates among students, lower absenteeism rates, and academic achievement gains in mathematics, science, history, and reading. Another finding had important implications for school equity. The particular characteristics of strong professional learning communities, a shared intellectual purpose, and a sense of collective responsibility for student learning reduce the traditionally strong relationship between socioeconomic status and achievement gains in mathematics and science. At monthly principals meetings, the superintendent, academics, academic services, innovative learning, and zone leadership will present a unified system message and collaborate to build principal capacity in systemic initiatives. Additionally, zone leaders and organizational effectiveness staff will facilitate professional learning communities, or PLCs, throughout the year. PLCs provide principals with a space to apply and reflect upon new learning in a feeder pattern. They will focus on collaboratively developing a shared goal designed to address a feeder pattern challenge, often referred to as a problem of practice. School leaders will be encouraged to take a critical look at their data as they work to develop a goal that addresses structural inequities present across their feeder pattern. School and zone leaders will challenge each other to move these conceptual conversations into actionable practices that directly impact learners. As they engage in PLC work, teams will hold each other accountable for examining their own role in both the problem and the solution to the problem. As leaders work toward a shared goal, it is essential that they model flexibility and responsiveness by calling others into the work, planning for inclusive engagement, speaking truth, and persisting in the face of adversity. As PLC members, leaders make a commitment to personally engage in the learning process by talking, listening, and reflecting in a transparent and authentic manner.
So I've been around for a long time, and I've been in a number of schools, and professional development is something that happens every year. I was able this year to experience the PLCs firsthand for the first time, and they're unique, and I equate it to this. I like to fish. You can fish with a net and throw the net in the water and catch whatever you can catch, or you can fish with a hook and a line and the right bait, and you can catch just what it is you're looking for. And that's what a PLC does. It streamlines, it zooms in, it targets.
So I was new to my feeder pattern this year, but not new to the principalship. It was an excellent opportunity for me to really get to know the other leaders in my feeder pattern much more rapidly than I probably would have had the opportunity to do, and also really put me in each of our feeder schools and gave me the opportunity to see our students learning and growing at every level, from pre-K all the way up to grade 12. So it was an excellent opportunity for me, and I really have valued all of the time I had to spend with them and talk about things that we were all finding at our schools that were similar, and find connections to build on that, and also to get to know the school community better.
So it's important for principals especially that we work toward creating environments where students and adults are learners. So often we focus on students as learners, but in order to move schools forward, adults have to be learning also.
one of the neat things that I've seen, a kind of byproduct of this PLC, is that when you have a group of professionals like principals working on this, it trickles down to the stat teachers. And the stat teachers trickle down the themes to the department chairs, and it goes to the teachers, and it goes to the community. And we talked about what kids need as they move through the elementary to the high school.
What the PLC allows principals to do when they're working vertically together is to gain a better understanding of all of the students on that K-12 continuum. Not just the academic challenges as well as academic successes, but the skills and the standards, but also supports. And really understanding that there's differences with the levels of supports at each level, and helping teachers to understand that at the elementary school, we're providing student supports just like we are at the middle school, but they might look different. And so how do we then communicate that to parents as parents are supporting our students and partnering with schools to help their students traverse that continuum?
So the SPP this year, because of some of the things that happened last year in the PLC, the SPP was looked at very carefully. And where we have in the past emphasized the instructional components of that SPP, this year we really looked at climate. And in climate, what we discovered was through the professional learning communities and the information that we were able to glean out of that what we really need to do is emphasize this connection piece. And that's what we've done. We've put together an SPP this year that will get teachers to realize that they need to kind of find ways to connect with kids. And we're going to do that through some of the different programs we're going to institute in the school.
It's critically important for principals to be the lead learners in their building, and also for them to take charge of their learning. What we really want to see happen are for principals to embrace this PLC model and use this as an opportunity to come together, not just with like-minded individuals, but with colleagues who are doing the same work, that have the same initiatives, the same goals, and the same passions around student achievement. And so when we bring them to the table and we present them with the data, then by looking at that data and by getting a better understanding of where their students are now versus where they want to bring them, we can begin the real work around shifts that need to be made.
At our individual schools, as we work on our SPPs and take on the journey of really looking at data thoughtfully and identifying needs and areas to grow, and where our strengths are too, that's important in the SPP process, and how we can use those strengths to bring other areas to grow forward. At my school, we noticed that our white students were outperforming the students of color, as well as special education students were not performing at the same level as their regular education peers. So as we brought those things forward, what we identified was that there are needs that we are missing.
So when we're looking at our problems of practice connected to student learning, how are we making sure that we're looking at our equity piece? What does that look like in our building and in other buildings within our feeder pattern, and really focusing on our students in the margins. So what do we need to do? What data points do we need to look at? What learning do we need as ourselves, as the adults, to make sure that that is always embedded within our new learning and the professional learning? All of our professional learning is connected to the SPP. So I'm really proud of the work that we're doing in our building, because I feel like we were charged a couple years ago as principals to make sure that our teachers knew the SPP, and I feel like our teachers really live the SPP because of the professional learning model we were able to provide to them, which we're fortunate too that, again, it's not only connected at the elementary level, but I feel because our principals have made that connection, we're offering learning for elementary, middle, and high school teachers all at the same time. And again, providing those learning walks and looking at this model of how are we using the best strategies for adult learning, and that has really impacted the learning within our school building.
when you go from visiting each other's schools to visiting classrooms and giving kudos and things that we noticed, to then switching the conversation really to let's compare our data. That was very rich, and it was very helpful to hear that my colleagues were experiencing some of the same things at our elementary feeders as well as at our high school. So as we identified a common need, which is that all of us have a group of students who are identifying that they don't feel connected, that they don't feel this sense of belonging, what we were able to do as a feeder pattern is really create a shared vision, a shared motto of supporting community, supporting every learner every day, which is going to be our motto moving forward.
We've built the relationships that we've needed to build to be able to have the conversations, those deep conversations about the equity piece, and even sharing each other's data and looking at some of those inequalities that exist within our feeder pattern, and having that conversation and recognizing that and using that as, how do we make our instruction better? How do we look at this notion of the whole child and make sure that we're looking at all of our students from their perspective, students that we may look at as students in the margins when we look at our data. And I'm comfortable talking to the other principals about that data. I also think that impacts learning on a school level, because when I can have those conversations with leadership within my feeder pattern, I also am pushing myself to go back and have those conversations within my building and within our staff, and really examining that data and looking at where are the areas that we can celebrate and that we're doing really well, but then also looking at those areas and questioning each other and looking at what strategies do we have, or what do we need as learners to be able to dig deeply into these areas that maybe we haven't before. So really looking at this whole notion of what we've learned through equity training and now applying it. Not that we haven't been, but I think the PLC is giving us a different way to apply our learning.
So the wonderful thing about a PLC is that no matter who enters that space, they're entering the space as a member, as a colleague, as a collaborator, as a problem solver. They may be a facilitator, but they're not necessarily a guider or a director. They're coming into that space to learn, but also to support and help all of us move along the continuum that we call supportive students.